So, I'm wondering if it's even remotely possible to tell a good story on a micro four thirds camera with a cheap $65 lens, and not a vintage lens, not a cool, lens with a history behind it, and you buy it on eBay and 17 people have owned it and it was in World War II, and not like that. Just a Ttartisans 17mm f1.4 modern lens that actually looks kind of like a vintage lens, but it's just all manual lens, costs nothing. It's actually a 35mm point of view because it's on a micro four thirds, GH5 in this case. And yeah, I'm just wondering if you could go out and just tell a story with that lens. Is it any good, Can you actually, create some kind of a cinematic feeling with just that lens? 35mm is a good all-around focal length. And, f1.4 is mad fast. And also, can a micro four thirds show up with any real dynamic range? Because this is crazy. I'm in the shade, it's dark right here, but it is crazy bright behind me. And is everything just completely blown out? I don't know if you could actually do it, I'm just wondering. Stories are amazing though, because stories are the best way, in my opinion, to communicate any kind of knowledge, any kind of wisdom. I think stories, metaphors, art, plays, films, paintings, dance pieces, sculptures, I think that is the best way to pass down any kind of information. And actually, throughout the history of humankind, that is indeed the oldest form of passing down stories. Telling stories, either getting in a town square and acting in front of a bunch of people, or just telling your family, or sitting around and sharing a meal. It's the most basic, in my opinion, the most visceral form of, passing our history along, documenting life, creating legacy, and remembering, And then, as time goes by, stories change. People start to tell stories in their own way, and they change, and it's kind of like the game of telephone. By the time it gets to the last person, it's probably a completely different story. But I think the heart of stories remain, usually it's a character, usually it's a person or an animal, it could be a dog, a legendary dog in a family or something like that. Generally the crux of it, the part that really gets you in the heart remains the same, no matter what happens around it, no matter what the story becomes. It's that subject, maybe it's a place, maybe it's an old building, maybe it's an old park, who knows? But I think that part of the story stays. And that's really cool. One thing I really admired about my mother was that every Sunday she used to sit around and call everybody who she loved in her life. She would sit down in a comfortable chair at a table or something like that and open up her address book, and she would call everybody who she cared about. And I thought that was so cool. She talked to everybody, and she felt like if you didn't keep in contact with people, your relationship changes. You don't know what's going on with people in their day-to-day life. It's like catching up is not enough. It's not the same. It doesn't feel the same in your chest. You want to know what's going on with people's kids or their careers or their working life or their homes or whatever. The good, the bad, all of it, Then you maintain a relationship with people. But if you just the whole notion of speaking to somebody who you haven't seen for 30 years or 40 years or 10 years or whatever, and we just picked up like no time had passed. I mean, that's cool. And that's amazing, but in the grand scheme of things in your day-to-day life, what is that worth? You know what I mean? If you love somebody, if you care about somebody, if somebody resonates with you, if you feel like somebody adds to your life, just their energy makes you feel good, Why not have them in your life all the time? Why not keep in contact with them, you know? Why not give a call? Even if you live across the country or across the world, especially in this day and age where you can, like, you know, get on, you know, a Zoom for free, you know? There's so many different options where you don't even have to pay for it anymore. It used to be like, you know, long distance phone calls were like so much money. You couldn't do it. But now you don't have to write letters. And even if you write letters all the time, like share what's going on with your life all the time, it's special, you know, and that's what, and to me, actually, that's what life is, you know, like my work is my whole life, you know. I don't have a lot of close relationships, but the ones that I do have are so meaningful to me, you know, they mean everything to me. But what I spend my time doing all the time is my work, and I'm always making a movie or writing a play or rehearsing a play or doing something that ultimately is going to allow me to share it with people, get in front of an audience or share it as a screening. And my relationships, I look at them as the same way, you know, the people I speak to every day or, you know, every week or whatever. There's just something very special about that is everything, you know. So my mother, as a result of that, had so many people in her life. She was like, you know, talking to people all the time, and she knew what was going on with people, and she was sharing meals with people if they were local, and she just had such a rich, full life, you know. And when she passed, I don't think she regretted anything, you know, except for maybe a boyfriend that she had when she was 18 or something like that, and that nobody wanted to hear about, you know. She couldn't let that go. But, you know, other than that, I think my mother had a really rich, full, great life, and I think it was because of the relationships that she had, the people. You know, my grandmother was the same way. My father was certainly that way. I don't know, my life is not like that for some reason. You know, I just have a few. I don't have. And there are people I want to keep in contact with, but they're just not that way, so it doesn't work out. And I feel sad about that, if I'm being really honest. But, you know, I also understand people, you know, you can't force people to do that. People have to live their lives. They get busy. But, you know, the bottom line is everybody has people in their life, you know, and you choose who you want in your life. You know, you choose who you care to talk about in the day-to-day, like if something happens in politics or in sports or something like that. And, you know, who do you call? You know, who do you speak to on the day-to-day? Those are your people, you know? So, yeah, that's something I really admire about my mom. It's pretty special. So anyway, I digress. Although, yeah, I wanted to, that's a story. I'm telling it on this, you know, 17 millimeter lens, Ttartisans, f1.4. I'm using the Panasonic S5, of course, so it's all manual. Oh no, what am I talking about? I'm using the Panasonic GH5, the Micro Four Thirds. S5 is my main camera, but I've been kind of loving this camera. It's great backup. I guess a great B cam. I'm using the Vlog in it, which is kind of a, you know, one level below the Vlog in my S5, but I think it looks great. So anyway, that's it. That's all I wanted to talk about today. Like, can you tell a story with a lens like this? You know, 35 millimeter perspective, but it's still a 17 millimeter lens. So if I got really close to it, it would be really distorted. And the cool thing about a wide angle lens like this is you can kind of, everything is in focus, or because it's an f1.4, you can blur out the background too. You can do some serious creating with this lens. I think it's fun. I love it, you know. I could make a movie with this lens. So anyway, thanks for watching. Please subscribe. And please hit the like button if you like what I'm doing. And yeah, people. They're really important. A lot of people I love who I haven't spoken to in a long time. And, you know, I do reach out to them, but, you know, I get disappointed because the response is usually weird. And, you know, that's because if you don't speak to somebody for a long time, you know, it's either, you know, like we're going to catch up and not speak again for another 14 years, or it's like defensive, like, oh, they feel guilty or whatever. It's just weird, you know. Like if you don't have somebody in your life, it's just not the same. And there's nothing wrong with it or anything like that. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it's not as rich or full for me. And it makes me a little sad. But, if that's the way people want to live their lives, that's cool. Sometimes people get very involved with their family or their small group of friends, Like, if you don't have kids, like me, I don't have kids. People with kids tend to kind of float away from you. As a matter of fact, a long time ago, I ran into a friend of mine from college, and we hadn't seen each other in a long time. And he said to me, "Do you have kids?" And I said, "No." And he goes, "Oh, we're not going to be able to be friends." And I laughed, and he was like, "Oh, no, I'm totally serious. Like, you'll see. If you don't have kids, your friends with kids, they ain't going to be able to hang out with you anymore. Like, it just doesn't work. That's just the way it is, Unless you're working with them, it's not going to happen. Once they have kids, they're out. And you're out. And I find that, in other kind of circumstances as well, but I'm not going to get into that. I'm just going to say I love every single one of those friends anyway. Doesn't make a difference to me. But yeah, I wish I could hang out with them a little bit more, see them, share meals with them or whatever. Not the ones who are toxic. Those people I'm happy to get out of my life, People who don't feel good, I don't believe in forcing it. But if there's love there, if there's just easy, if it's easy, then what? Why not? But if it's toxic and difficult, if you think I'm too intense, if you think I'm too, serious all the time or whatever, that's fine. I don't want to be, nobody wants to be where they're not welcome or where they're not wanted. But yeah, it's just my point of view on life and friends and relationships. Spend time with your people, because you know what? Tomorrow is not promised for anybody. Life is fleeting, Time is flying by. Think about it, What were you doing 5 years ago? Does that feel like 5 years, What were you doing? Like, what's a fond memory from a decade ago? Like something that was really a great day. Does that feel like 10 years? And then think about how old you're going to be 10 years from now. And think about how fast that time can pass. So, if you love people and you want to hang out with them, spend time with them, call them, write to them, speak to them. Otherwise, that'll be it, You'll be at the end of your life like my mother was, or my father, and you'll probably feel shitty about more things, Like, what's the meaning of life, I think people is the meaning of life. And what you contribute as well. In my case, my work. But people, there's nothing more important than your people. That's real talk.